I get off track sometimes, and yeah, I lost it. So I'm sure my wife wasn't happy at the late night runs, but the early mornings are good.
And
But
how did
yeah,
your
I was.
marathon experience go?
I never did it. I
Oh,
never did it. Yeah, I
really?
never did it. I backed out. I backed out.
No
So
way.
yeah, yeah. So I backed out. So it I found the trails, and I signed up for another ultra marathon. So I 2017 December, I ran a 50K in December 3rd,
You
I
just
think it
skipped the
was.
marathon. You just went
Yeah,
straight.
well, yeah. So my first long distance was um 2017 of February. So during TAJI, yeah, I
Okay.
ran Fort Ord. That was I went from half marathon in 2016. Someone gave me their bib. I did San Jose Rock and Roll,
Mhm.
which I believe is around October-ish, somewhere around there. Um, so I did rock and roll half marathon, and I got 137 that day, and I was dead. I was like, I'm never doing this again. I was
Yeah.
doing everything all wrong. I had like this fanny pack with water bottles, like that
Mhm.
kept rotating all the way around, and it was a mess, man. But my splits were all over the place, and I cramped up, and I was running with my phone. But yeah, I went from that half marathon, and then um, I signed up. I was going to sign up for a marathon, but I signed up for Fort Ord 50K and completed it in February during TAJI. So that was part of my 300 miles
Okay.
during that month. So by the time Ventura was around, so that year was my year of long distance. I ran uh, Fort Ord 50K, and then I ran Quicksilver 50K. I ran Surfer's Path Marathon. So I was familiar with the marathon distance. I just hadn't run one solo all out. It
Mm.
was kind of like party pace, get through the miles, and
Yeah.
just say that you completed it. So same with my 50Ks and my marathons. It was like, okay, keep it in third gear and just get to the finish line. Just get to the finish line.
Yeah.
But I wanted to like let it go. And in Surfer's Path marathon, I did that. I let it go. And it was all bad. Like
Oh,
it was all bad, and it was right before that Ventura. So I didn't know anything about sodium and salt, and I had my little goos, and I had it all mapped out. I'm gonna take two of these every 3 miles. So every 3 miles I'm gonna goo up two times, and my water bottles, and so I had it all planned out, but the salt, the sodium, and
mhm.
running at that speed, I hit the first half at 135, and that's good if you're just running a half marathon, right? But I got another half to go, and
Yep.
it started to go uphill in Santa Cruz. So now I'm like headed uphill, mile 14. I'm like, woo! I'm gonna kill it. And I'm doing the math. I'm like, okay, 135 times two, add 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and by mile 16, I was like, or like it was probably like 17, I was walking. I was like
Mhm.
locked up, cramps, and just tears, just like I couldn't move. I was cramping in my neck and under my arm. So I had a runner pass by, and he was like, "Hey, you need some salt?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, whatever that does."
Yeah.
He hands me a pill. I think it was salt. So I open it up and I eat this salt pill, and it took about 10 to 15 minutes, and I got my legs back, and I was able to finish. And my last mile was about a 8 minute mile. So
That's fast.
the
I mean,
salt,
considering
this,
you were cramping at one point and you had to
yeah,
recover from that, that's super good.
yeah, I was at a complete stop. So I did have a little downhill going into the finish, but the last 4 miles I ran and I was like shuffling and then slowly it started kicking in. So that's when I started doing research on salt.
Yeah.
And that really helped me, but I didn't do enough research because that hit me later. But going into Ventura, um, I figured I didn't want the road race as much. I wanted the 50K distance.
Yeah.
So I backed out of the Ventura race because I didn't think it would give me what I wanted, crossing the finish line. And I'm like, so I'm going to run a trail race. I love that you can be out there and you're independent with your pack on and your food and I got my little map and I'm figuring out the elevation at each mile. So I geeked out on all that and I
Yeah.
knew what my hardest part, I loved it. And that's one of my favorite races that I did, Vista Verde 50K. And I PR'd, I did that one in 6:03. And my prior 50Ks were 8 hours, 9 hours
Yeah.
because
And
it was
50Ks, for people that don't know, have a lot of hills, a lot of elevation. They're not the same as road races, right? They're not.
yeah, it's all trails and
Mhm.
yeah, you're out there for 4 to 5 miles, which could be about an hour in between aid stations where
Yep.
you're getting refueling, and it's 31 miles in the hills. And knowing that I've done that as a casual pace, I wanted to really let this go.
Yeah.
So August 22nd, when I started my run streak, heading into Ventura Marathon, I canceled. I backed out of the marathon, lost my money. I deferred to the next year, but I never did it. I'm like,
Oh,
you know what? I'm done with road races. So mentally, I checked out of road races and I geared up for December for that 50K. And it was the most amazing experience I had, especially with dealing with my mother and kind of my tribute and being on a run streak from September, October, November, and now here we are December. Like I ran the night before the 50K. I
yeah.
ran after the 50K.
That,
So
that's a
that
when you post this stuff, that's the part that always blows my mind. I'm like, how do you run after your ultra? So that's amazing.
yeah, yeah.